Welcome to another Cars with Miles quarter mile review, where I give you the best and the worst of a new car I'm testing out and the time it takes a PLP50 to do the quarter mile. Today we're testing out the Maserati Levante Trofeo, and usually when I tell people that I'm testing a Maserati, they're like, oh, Maseratis are cool, but aren't they kind of like dope dealer cars? And then other non-enthusiasts are like, oh, Maserati, don't they kind of have like a reputation of being crappy? So today we're going to find out if this $180,000 as optioned SUV changes that narrative. The Levante Trofeo is the top trim, most performance-y SUV from Maserati, and so you've got all these aggressive accent changes compared to the standard base Levante. There's carbon fiber trim pieces all over the front and back of the car, in addition to these little red accents here and there. So it's pretty subtle to those who aren't aware of the different models, but I think it all adds up to a design that feels just as aggressive as its counterparts in the performance SUV space. Overall, I like the way this car looks on the outside, honestly. It's not as shouty as a Lamborghini Urus, but also not as like super under the radar and subtle as like a Porsche Cayenne Turbo S. I think it sits right in the middle, and I think if you're going to spend nearly 200 grand on an SUV, you might as well get it in a poppin' color, and I think this blue metallic certainly fits the bill. And this color actually has an Italian name. It's Blue Emozione. Sorry, that's not enough Italian. Blue Emozione. We've got 21-inch wheels on this car, and they're pretty boring if you ask me. They're not ugly, but they're not banging either. They're just boring. But thankfully, wheels are the easiest aspect of a car to change aesthetically, so you know, you can get some new ones if you'd like, but I'd say for nearly 200 grand, I'm not really moved by these. I think the interior of this car is where aesthetically things kind of take a turn for the worst, if you ask me. I just quite honestly can't understand how someone could pay nearly 200 grand or over 150 grand for that matter on a car that kind of has the look and feel of something that costs half the price, maybe even less, quite honestly. I don't feel like anything in this car was built poorly, but it doesn't feel like a six-figure premium vehicle either, if you ask me. When it comes to the comfort of the seats themselves, I think it's fine. I think for 1 to 2 hour trips, you'll be okay. You won't feel any exorbitant amounts of discomfort, but it's certainly no AMG GLS, which is kind of a shame because this car costs a lot more than the AMG GLS or like an X5M, which I think also has slightly more comfortable seats. And I think it mostly comes down to the upholstery choice that kind of makes the seats feel a little stiff, not that cushiony. Maybe they want you to feel nice and snug and tight in the car when doing some more spirited driving, but personally, I just not the biggest fan of the seats overall. All of the buttons and controls in this car feel very Chrysler-ish. Honestly, except for these carbon fiber paddle shifters, pretty much nothing in this car from a button and control standpoint screams 150K plus. And actually, this front storage cubby here in the center console, it must be broken or something like that. I don't know if it's just my unit, it probably is, but I haven't been able to get it to close all the way. Every time I try to close it all the way, it feels like I'm going to break it. And honestly, I'd have it open most of the time anyway, because it's a nice place to store my phone, but yeah, man, not the greatest from a build quality standpoint in terms of the interior controls. So there's an amalgamation of seemingly quality materials at play here, but somehow the overall interior still feels like a car that should cost like 40% less, and I think that's honestly being a little generous. So as an Italian luxury performance SUV, I'm pretty disappointed with the overall interior feel of the car. Technology and connectivity aspect of this car just works. I don't think there's anything in here that screams uber premium or revolutionary in terms of technology at play here, but certainly nothing to complain about either. You got this touchscreen in the middle here that supports wireless Apple CarPlay, and I've had no weird connectivity or setup issues. It was very straightforward and easy to set up, and it connects to my car very quickly every time I get in the car, faster than a lot of other cars I've been testing lately. And with a lot of cars lately that just have weird technology related issues, I think that's something to appreciate, the fact that you don't have to worry about any weird nonsense in this car from a technology connectivity standpoint. We're in the middle of winter here in Jersey, and so I'm going to be testing the heated seats and heated steering wheel in every car I test out that has it. And I kind of find it weird that given all the physical buttons and controls in the car that you have to use the touchscreen to activate the heated steering wheel and heated seats, but thankfully it's right there front page. I never have to go fiddling through settings in the car to get it activated like in other cars I've driven recently, like BMW's iDrive 8 software. So yeah, I think that's definitely something to appreciate, and it's cool to know that they're thinking of the cold climate folk, you know? Every time I get into a car of this price range, one of the first things I want to do is test out the audio system, and this Levante Trofeo is equipped with the Bowers & Wilkins Ultra Premium 17 speaker audio system. The Ultra Premium is Maserati's words, not mine. The sound system in this car is not that impressive. It can get loud for sure, but I feel like there's no real character to the sound system at all. It gets loud and boomy the more you crank it up. The mids and highs are fine. The bass response is okay, but I feel like I've been in cars that cost a quarter of the price that have equivalent sound experience. So I feel like you definitely shouldn't purchase this car expecting to be blown away by the sound system, because you just won't, quite honestly. The driving experience of this car is definitely a love-hate relationship. This car is powered by a 3.8-liter twin-scroll turbocharged V8 that's built by Ferrari and shares a lot of architectural similarities to a lot of Ferrari's V8-powered turbocharged supercars. We've got about 580 horsepower and 540 pound-feet of torque, and this car is fast. That is not to be questioned here. Start giving it some gas around 3,000 RPM when those turbos kick in, you are gone. So this is definitely not a slow car by any means, but there's definitely more to the story than horsepower, you know? Firstly, the sound. This thing sounds really, really good, quite honestly. In normal and especially sport and Corsa mode, when the valves are open, you get a lot of sound out of this car, not only on the inside, but the outside too. And that's definitely something I appreciate about this car compared to other modern V8 powered cars like the Audi RS Q8s and the X5Ms that are comparatively a little quieter on the inside. Even in this 30 to 40 degree weather, I've constantly got the windows cracked just because I love the way this car sounds for a turbo V8, quite honestly. But hey, I guess that's what happens when you got one that's built by Ferrari, right? This car is equipped with the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, which is basically the default transmission for a lot of high-end performance cars these days. And in certain vehicles, this ZF 8-speed will definitely feel a little dull, but not in this car, quite honestly. Whenever I hop in this car, I have to throw it in manual mode and handle the gear changes myself, just because it's so fun to engage with, quite honestly, especially with these large column-mounted paddle shifters that I can certainly appreciate for being as big as they are, because no matter how you're turning in the car, you can usually always reach the bottom or top end of the shifters, which is definitely something I appreciate. That's a nice touch. And I also really dig the fact that this is a true manual mode, because whenever you hit redline like this, it'll hang onto the gear until you upshift yourself, which is definitely something that I can appreciate. A true big boy manual mode. I think the handling in this car is where things start to get a little lost in terms of performance. I'm not sure if this car was just designed to always make you feel like your physical well-being is always up in the air, or if the car just doesn't handle that well. It could be a bit of both, quite honestly. I think the first major issue with the handling setup on this car are the tires. You got these super skinny, low-profile tires that definitely can get grippy, but you definitely have to get them warmed up before you can start feeling confident making certain moves. And even when doing standard pedestrian driving, these tires certainly make you feel the road, feel it a lot. Especially here in Jersey, where there's a lot of crappy roads, quite honestly. It's not the most soothing or plush driving experience compared to other luxury SUVs I've tried. So overall, I definitely recommend going with a different tire setup for this car. I'd definitely go for something with a lot more meat on it. Honestly, the car is just too stiff and too rigid, and it really isn't confidence inspiring at all to drive when trying to push it to the limits in terms of handling. Not that I think you should be pushing this car to the limits on public roads. And in terms of cars priced in a similar bracket as this, it just doesn't stack up, in my opinion, in terms of overall driving feel. Just last week, I had the Acura MDX Type S, and definitely check out the review on that if you haven't already. But that car costs $100 grand less, and I honestly feel like it runs laps around this car in terms of suspension and handling feel. And quite honestly, that's sad. You're getting beat out by a Honda, bro. So yeah, it's fast. You can do a sub 4 second 0 to 60 at nearly 200 miles an hour. It sounds really good, and it's got a very nice transmission feel that's fun to engage with, but The interior quality and the sound system is kind of whatever. The handling is very subpar for how much this thing costs, and overall it just makes me feel like you should definitely not spend $180,000 on this car. Please don't. You can get a used one of these for about $120K, and even at that price point, I feel like I'd personally probably go in a different direction. But I guess if you want the fastest Italian performance SUV that isn't the Lamborghini Urus, then I guess this is what you should buy. And back to the whole dope dealer thing of it all, right? You know, someone who sells drugs, presumably illegally, probably likes to live life on the edge, right? And so I think for someone like that, who's hopefully doing well at it enough to the point where they can afford a Maserati Levante Trofeo, I think this might be a good buy because it has the flair aesthetically, it has the sound, and when it comes to handling, it quite honestly feels dangerous at times. And so I think based on those parameters alone, this might be a dope dealer's delight. But that's going to be about it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this. And let me know what you guys think of these quick little quarter-mile reviews in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. To some, owning this car makes you look like a dangerous deviant, but to others, it's the dope dealer's delight. But I will say, the sound is quite all right.